Let's talk about how to get your design onto this blank screen right here. For that process, we're going to use something called emulsion. Emulsion is a glue-like substance that you coat onto the frame that's light sensitive, that's the darkroom, in order to create your stencil, your image, onto your screen. There's a few different types of emulsion: pre-sensitized, ready to go, and type that you mix, which uses this product called diazo. Diazo is a sensitizing product that's very bright and powdery. You mix this with water, dissolve it, and then pour it in and mix up your emulsion. Diazo emulsion is a little easier to use starting out because it has a wider level of forgiveness, meaning that you can make some mistakes during the exposure process, which we'll talk about later. The next thing you're going to do is take your emulsion, pour it into your scoop coater or trough to coat the screens. The coating device is called a scoop coater, and it allows you to precisely coat a screen with an exact level of emulsion. Typically want to fill this up about half full to 3/4 full. Really nice to have a wet rag, because if this gets on something and dries, really hard to get off. You also want to avoid getting the emulsion on the edge like this, so if there's any edge drips, just wipe them off with your wet rag. Always remember to cap the emulsion. Okay, before we coat our screen, we want to make sure that the emulsion is settled into the trough and you get all your big bubbles out of it. Now, there's a couple different ways to coat a screen. Using single hand, which I prefer and I'll show you in this video, and using two hands. So if you can put it against the wall, put something behind it like a block or a piece of wood using two hands, which as you're starting out may be a little bit more helpful, though I do like just learning with one hand. You take your coater, there's two sides of it. There's a sharp side, putting less emulsion down, and there's a round side, putting more emulsion down. Recommend using the sharp side to get a smooth coat as you start out. You always want to start on the flat side or the outside of the screen. This is the side that's going to touch the shirt eventually. Coat, take your dominant hand, hold your scoop coater like so, take your left hand or non-dominant hand and tilt the screen back slightly. Let that emulsion drip up into the mesh. So you see that kind of dam up against the mesh right there. You create a nice bead, and then I roll it back a little bit, move straight up. You want to put a good amount of pressure all the way to the top. You can hear a little zipping sound, and then saw it off, letting the emulsion drip back into the coater. So that's a pretty good coat. You can see here on the sides that since I let it dam up a little bit too long, it's dripping. So you can take your rag, clean that off a little bit like that. You want to make sure that this inside of your image area is very smooth. Then you want to take your screen, flip it over. On the inside of the screen, it gets a little trickier. Kind of dip in and get that emulsion to bead up on the mesh. You have a really full scoop coater. You want to be a little bit careful here. That's why I don't fill it up all the way. Let it bead up onto the mesh. Again, all the way to the top. Stop about 1 inch from the top. Saw off. Set back down. And your screen should be nice, smooth, and glossy like you see here.